Faro, Gran Canaria and more, with 60,000 more seats now on sale.
Mostly cloudy and misty in places with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Very mild overnight with temperatures not falling below 13 to 15 degrees in moderate to fresh southerly winds. Thursday will be mild and humid with heavy rain in the west. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Well, we opened the lines once again this morning for your chance to win big with our new game, News Talk's Cash Machine. Today there was €6,789.10 in the cash machine, but we had no winner today. Person was picked at random from those who entered. We rang just after 3 o'clock, no answer. So the €6,789.10 rolls over until tomorrow, when we'll be adding even more cash to it. So make sure you're listening to News Talk Breakfast at 8 a.m. and we'll tell you exactly how much you could win.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should there be an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Now, great to have you along for the Football Show. So later on, Rob Harris is going to join us. Rob, of course, is the global sports correspondent for Associated Press. And he will tell us about the FIFA/Arsene Wenger plan to bring into effect a biennial World Cup. So from 2028, really, Wenger wants World Cup in 28, Euros in 29 in this part of the world. Obviously, it'd be Copa America elsewhere and so on. And then back to a World Cup in 30, Euros in 31, World Cup in 32, Euros in 33, World Cup in 34. You get the idea. You don't have to be John Nash to see the pattern there. So, will it happen? It seems there is a pretty good chance, increasingly, that FIFA have the numbers, because obviously one vote, one country, and lots of countries like the sound of this. It gives them a chance of finally making a World Cup, and they should, it seems, have the votes. So it might come down to what extent UEFA, the clubs, the various leagues are willing to potentially boycott or drag their heels in various ways. So Rob Harris from Associated Press is going to join us later on. Not sure to what extent semi-finals of the UEFA Nations League are gripping you, but first one on this evening. Italy 0, Spain 2 after 57 minutes. Ferran Torres with both goals for Spain. I just mentioned there before 9 o'clock news, I'd watched a couple of recent Spanish qualification games, just happened to catch them, and Ferran Torres, in the way he did for Man City, for instance, against Spurs away, was leading the line for Spain. His record is pretty good for Spain, you have to say. So 2 goals this evening. That brings him up to 12 goals in 21 games, which is not bad at all. 21-year-old Ferran Torres. So he's scoring for Spain, and 2 this evening against Italy. Not bad at all. We do have Ireland against Azerbaijan on Saturday. Very happy to bring in Mr. David Sneyd. Hello, David. How are you doing?
Evening, Joe. What's the story?
All good. I mean, we will talk about the game. I think really that is the plan. Callum Robinson swooped in and grabbed everybody's attention, I think, yesterday, and he's on front pages, back pages of all the papers today. Current affairs shows all over this. For people who still haven't heard the audio, we don't have to labour the point, I think, too much. But here is Callum Robinson in his press conference yesterday, and he was asked about the vaccination, which obviously he isn't taking at the moment, which was the big talking point.
My honest opinion would be it's your choice. Like, I wouldn't be to say everyone should be vaccinated or you shouldn't get vaccinated. I think it's your personal choice. If you want to be vaccinated, then go do it. But if you don't want to, it is what it is. It's everyone's choice. I can't tell people to get it, and I can't tell people not to.
What's your personal choice, Connor? Have you decided to get vaccinated?
I haven't been vaccinated yet, no. So that's my choice at this moment in time.
Some people might think that's unusual given your own personal health experience.
Yeah, of course. As I said, it's obviously annoying that I've caught it twice, but I haven't been vaccinated. Further down the line, I could change my mind and want to do it, but at this moment in time, I haven't been vaccinated. No.
Do you mind if I ask you why you didn't do that?
I just haven't done it. I think, as I said to you, man, here, it's your personal choice, and my choice at this moment in time, I haven't been vaccinated. I know, as you said, there's managers and people that will want you to do it, which is which is right in their way of what they think, but everyone has their choice and what they want to do. I wouldn't force it on people to do it or not. It's your choice, it's your body. And
Q, the last 24 hours. Difficult to talk too much about Robinson, David, because really there, when he's asked for any kind of reason, his answer was, I just haven't. And that was all he said, really. So where he is on the spectrum of somebody who just hasn't maybe bothered to inform themselves too much versus somebody at the other end of the spectrum who has done nothing but read into it and look into every article they could find. We don't really know where he is or what his rationale is. I mean, certainly he's taken a lot of criticism in the last 24 hours, that much you can say.
Yeah, I'm stuck between two stools a little bit in terms of, I kind of feel a bit sorry for him in the sense of he's been put out there and he's been open enough and he's obviously spoken about it and said he's not vaccinated, and he's getting all sorts of pelters now in terms of if it's different radio shows and all the rest of it. I think was it one radio host later on was saying that he's now caught COVID more times than he scored for Ireland, which I thought was a bit below the belt. It was interesting because from a personal point of view, I can't really defend him because I personally would be of the opinion that I think you have a responsibility to be vaccinated, but then again, I can't really force your opinion on somebody else. It's the fact that I suppose, and it was the nature of when he was speaking. I wasn't in the room myself for this part of the press conference, but no, it was a kind of a group setting, so it's kind of maybe difficult to properly get into it in terms of maybe if it was a one-on-one setting, you could have maybe elaborated a bit more. Maybe he wasn't given that opportunity. But I just found just a little bit today, even just after obviously with Callum Robinson, and then obviously coming on to speak about it, it was interesting just getting in touch with people at Premier League clubs, and it's an interesting one. People talking about bubbles, like there's a lot of people, I can say it now, it's 9:10. There's a lot of people almost at Premier League clubs who people have spoken to who are a bit pissed off about what they still have to go through in terms of what's happening, which I actually found a bit interesting and a bit surprising in terms of when I was reaching out to people today, and like
go through as in COVID protocols.
Yeah, but there was kind of like a sense that one of the points was made to me is like it was almost as if they were told like, well, there's not actually a benefit of getting it as a sports person because they're still getting tested twice a week in Premier League clubs. Like that's what, speaking to someone at a Premier League club today, they were kind of under the impression, well, get the vaccine and then they don't have to deal with all the protocols and what they have to be, as they were put it, almost going through with the rigorous testing, like still twice a week, and the social distancing that they still have to do around training and kind of wearing masks and around the training ground and stuff like that. And I did find that a bit interesting. But then when you hear them talking about it and like during this little bit of a bubble, and you kind of there, even people who always been getting the sense that at this point they almost feel as if it's just about keeping the show on the road with the Premier League and keeping the money rolling in, that they feel as if they're seeing the fact that in the UK life is getting essentially back to normal. And listen, not that I have sympathy for them, but like I was over at a game, first time over in England at a game at the weekend, and it just struck me even beforehand being around the grounds and like being in a very enclosed space, like full of people having a few drinks and stuff. And then obviously Everton, the protocols in Premier League are so rigorous. Like life has effectively returned to normal in the UK, and they're seeing that it's not the case. And obviously around the clubs, and they're still doing all the testing. I think I almost get the sense that some thought maybe if they got the vaccine they wouldn't have to be tested or what it was. I just found it a bit bizarre.
It does seem to be the dynamics of the thing. It does seem to depend what club you're at. So in the Premier League, for instance, I mentioned these stats earlier, but just for anyone who wasn't listening, Premier League, 20 clubs, 7 have more than 50% fully vaccinated. So obviously the other 13 don't. If you're in the Wolves dressing room, they're at 100%. If you're at Leeds, 99%. If you're at Liverpool, 99%, which by the way is better than the UK uptake of 89%. So they're way above average. Whereas, for instance, if you're at Manchester United, which was reported on over the last couple of days, you're well below 50%. Thought it was interesting that the PFA chief executive came out and urged the players not to believe all the myths and the lies online. And that's the PFA chief executive coming out saying that. And just like two different quotes to throw at you, and they're both from club doctors, one anonymous, the other is the Rochdale team doctor, Dr. Wesley Tensel, who said, I think one of the reasons for the low uptake this is social media, the anti-vax stuff that's bandied around. It does get passed around the changing room. Football changing rooms are different to most workplaces. They're all together. It's an echo chamber. So if one of the senior players or an influential person has seen something on social media and that's passed to somebody else, they're not necessarily likely to critically appraise where that's come from, and they end up going down a rabbit hole. That was the Rochdale team doctor. And then the Daily Mail spoke to a club doctor who remained anonymous, and it was interesting there. You got a sense of a club doctor almost banging his or her head against the wall. It's very frustrating. It's hard to know what to do, as the conspiracy theories have really taken hold in some dressing rooms. We've got senior players, intelligent men, coming out with all sorts of nonsense, and they won't be budged. One of them told me he didn't need the vaccine because he could boost his immunity by taking vitamins. Some of the stuff they're reading and believing on the internet's incredible. Players saying it will make them infertile, that it's part of a plot involving Bill Gates, that the pandemic is just propaganda. The real problem is that they're also polluting the minds of younger players. So that's about the best insight we have into what's going on in certain football dressing rooms. And obviously Irish players playing their football in England may not be immune to some of that. Now, by the way, I don't know where Callum Robinson is, and I don't like going after one player, individualising this, making this all about one person. He didn't give his reasons, so we don't know where his head is at, but certainly that's what the various doctors are saying. Doctors, by the way, ironically, who I'm sure players take their advice in a very unquestioning way most of the time. Take that injection, take that pill, do this, do that. I'm sure they do it in the main. So frustration seemed to be the order of the day there.
Yeah, and again, and even just from speaking to people today, and one person put it to me, is that it's almost, he was making the point that this hesitancy isn't something that's new. Like that, for as long as he's been around football, like there's players who won't get the flu jab around the time of year they should. You know what I mean? That there's even stuff around that where that's how it was put to me as well. Obviously, listen, it's COVID and it's a pandemic, and there's the amount of people thousands of people around the world who lost their lives. You would have liked to have thought that people would be kind of respecting the views they're given to by club doctors and stuff. And one of the things, and what you said there about the fact that it's gone from club to club, and I was thinking about this over the last couple of days. If you're going to look at what's happened in the Premier League over the last couple of years, more so over the last year, in terms of even with, say, COVID and the whole Black Lives Matter movement, where the Premier League captains all got together and they seemed to be really on the same page with a lot of stuff. They were able to actually find a common voice together. And it was Jordan Henderson and Seamus Coleman and stuff kind of seemed to be actually leading the way with that in terms of doing Zoom calls around the return to play with the Premier League as well. When was it Project Restart? That's what it was called, wasn't it? Yeah. And stuff that was happening as well around this. And that's sort of something that I'm surprised maybe the PFA maybe haven't tried to do, or again, it's something that I haven't been made aware of that maybe they have, because it did seem for a while as if a lot of the club captains, when it came to serious issues, actually were being proactive and were actually getting ahead of stuff and making sure that dressing rooms were fully informed on certain aspects and finding a common voice on something. So that's something that I'm surprised maybe hasn't happened. And perhaps it is what you're saying about dressing rooms. Again, it was a point that was made to me as well, is that there'd be people in dressing rooms who run dressing rooms, and there could be a certain number of players in a dressing room, and if what they say kind of goes, and some lads could be, again, you can kind of say this is Callum Robinson's reason because he didn't maybe expand on it, and it's almost unfair on him because he's put his head above the parapet here now to kind of be used as the poster boy for it. But like, there will be lads who are sheep and will just follow. We don't know, and it's just from a personal point of view, I do find it quite strange. Like, listen, we probably all have maybe friends and who maybe might be a bit skeptical, and you make your own mind up, and you do kind of you listen to the experts. That's how I've kind of tried to live it by the last while and gone off. And you would think that's what footballers would do as well. But listen, clearly, when you look at the numbers and you listen to the stories, and even just from speaking to people today, you kind of just get the sense that it is a bit of a different world for some of these lads. There's no getting away from it. It really is.
It seems to be creeping up, vaccination rates, by the way. BBC looked at the English Football League outside of the Premier League, and so they were at 18% uptake in August, and they jumped to 50% in September. So maybe it's creeping up slowly but surely. One last one of this, because again, I think we could talk about this all day, and ultimately it's tricky territory in some respects. We've just followed the advice. Beyond that, our expertise is limited. But from a media point of view now, I'd say Callum Robinson walked out today not thinking this was coming, and maybe sleptwalked into it, or last night rather, and suddenly kind of leaves the press conference a little ashen-faced and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be all over the place tomorrow. Like, is it now just going to become the norm that, like, every Ireland player who's interviewed is asked, and have you been vaccinated? And every Premier League player who is in the mix zone, and have you been vaccinated? Like, is this appropriate? Is this where it's going to go? Does this kind of just wither a bit as time goes on? Like, what's fair here?
I don't know. Like, well, personally, in terms of what's fair, from a professional point of view, if I was sitting down with a player for a one-on-one interview and was wanting to go into in depth in terms of talking about different topics, yeah, it would be something that I would bring up. I wouldn't be coming straight out and saying, "Are you vaccinated?" But like, it's literally a topic that you cannot avoid in terms of COVID over the last while, because it's what's happened. Like, so if you're sitting down one-on-one with someone, it, of course, is something that you're going to bring up. I think with Callum Robinson, it was natural that some talk would have came to COVID because of what's happened, the fact that he's missed games because of it, and he's had it twice. So I think in that instance, it's kind of, there's a natural, from a work point of view, like, there's a natural way you have to, like, it's a question that's he should have been expecting, I would imagine, or before he was going in, as tends to be the case now when players are brought in. They are kind of, I'm guessing, have a briefing of kind of, well, what's happening, maybe what to expect, not so much exactly the question, but they'll probably be told, and as you notice yourself, like, they probably get told a bit of a briefing of, listen, X, Y, and Z, just be prepared for maybe some kind of topic on it. So you would imagine he would have been given the heads up on it. I know the 21s were doing stuff that, or the 21s, was originally supposed to be in person today, and then because of what happened and the coverage, and I think certain journalists maybe not feeling 100% comfortable over the fact that they maybe with someone who isn't vaccinated and all the rest of it, that was then switched to be done by Zoom,
right.
I think, rather than in person and stuff. And like, we are kind of getting into a point where everything is being done over Zoom in terms of press conferences. It's beginning, obviously this was the week where things were actually beginning to get back to normal and in person, and it's kind of like, it's been a strange one over the last while in terms of, from a point of view of myself, in terms of working, like, kind of, like, there have been times where I've been gone over and doing interviews before COVID, and you're kind of, you're getting to stay with a subject for a weekend and sleeping on their couch kind of thing, and you're kind of like, you're kind of developing a bit of a niche from a professional point of view doing that, and then you're like, the chances of getting something like that again are almost impossible. But then at the same time, because Premier League clubs are doing everything via Zoom over the last while, you've actually got the chance to be involved in maybe more press conferences than you would have been able to in terms of getting over to the UK. So there's been some kind of benefits to that way. I can't see it being something that's going to dominate every single press conference from now on, asking a player, are they vaccinated? But like, I imagine maybe with the FAI now say they'd know, which I'm guessing they'd know which players are, they might even suss it out, and then maybe not put up players who aren't, just in case it is. And this is the thing as well, and without getting too much into it, and this, I know things have been trying to change in terms of the culture with the FAI and media and stuff, but for so long you were getting the same players put up to do media because they were the ones who were happy to talk and would be willing to actually say yes and do it. Whereas, I don't know if that was the case with Callum Robinson, because obviously wrote is almost of which players are put up, but if that's the case where they'll only put up players maybe who are vaccinated in terms of in-person press conferences, that could be something that might happen down the line. I don't know. But yeah. I'm guessing it's something that now will be, obviously, I know the FA released a statement, didn't they, as well, talking about the testing and stuff that's being done in terms of public health and UEFA protocols and stuff. So it's, it's...
What about the match itself? So I guess this has been a big 24-hour storm, and quickly on Saturday, the match will take precedence, certainly for a couple of days anyway, because there's just a huge degree of pressure on Stephen Kenny now.
But he has to win. People say this game, I feel, is it like obviously results, but he just has to win this game. He just, from a point of view of, we're saying that, I think I've spoken to you, there's numerous times over the last while. Obviously, you want to see development, but I think at this stage, he just needs to get a result. I don't think it's necessarily a case of you throw out the kind of blueprint you've been working towards and try and get a result hook or by crook. I think he needs to stick by his guns and stick with his convictions and how he wants this Ireland team to play. But it just has to work in this game. Like, Ireland can't afford, and Stephen Kenny can't afford just for his own, even at this point, just for more of the credibility point of view at this point, he just needs to get a result just to buy himself a bit of breathing space with people who and critics who rightly over the results just obviously do not want them to be manager anymore. But people he needs to get results just purely as well, because like he can't keep on making the same excuses time and time again and talk about building for the future, which is great in what he has to do, and I do believe in what he's been trying to do. But at some point, it needs to just kind of crystallise with a result at this point of the campaign, just to give him breathing space, because that's what he needs now. Because a poor result against Azerbaijan on Saturday, and in the mood going into that friendly against Qatar, like, it's almost like it's a pointless game then. Like, if you consider where the kind of maybe the last half an hour or so of that Serbia game and the kind of energy that did seem to be in the stadium, and a bit of the belief that maybe he was there by getting that last minute pretty late result, I think people were beginning to buy into it then again and have a bit more confidence, and they were seeing some of the players like Andrew Omobamidele and obviously Gavin Bazunu and stuff. But if they can kick on a little bit and just show that bit, it's just going to be a really, really difficult situation.
Yeah, and like Tuesday would have the potential to be very messy indeed if they lost to Qatar as well, and then the full-time whistle, and it just gets difficult then on a few fronts. I kind of think as well, if you look at, say, the last international window, obviously the three games, like, I think there's enough positives that have come from that I don't think it's a case of coming into this campaign thinking it's so downbeat. It's downbeat because of everything else that's happened. It could turn though. I think Serbia definitely was that was their best window for sure, and Serbia, even before they scored the goal, there was a bit of support. But I think a defeat in Azerbaijan, everybody watching at home on a miserable Saturday evening, I think the atmosphere could be different on Tuesday at the Aviva. On Azerbaijan, so I mentioned this to Damien Delaney, they're 117th in the world. For the last 22 games and counting, they haven't scored more than a goal a game. And Ireland's defence, actually, there's a bit of strength. You would feel okay about it the way it's performed more recently. The problem, as ever, is can Ireland score a goal? And the only goal really of any note across this entire campaign was their very first one against Serbia, the Callum Robinson cross and the Brown header. Everything else has been Egan header, Duffy header, OG, Collins after keepers chased down, like nothing really, and like no goals against Luxembourg. So Ireland scoring is what this comes down to a little bit on Saturday. Let's presume for a second Ida's in. Connolly, even though Kenny did say his career has stalled a bit, which was telling, Connolly's in, and Robinson will be a big player for them. Like, you'd feel there's a bit of creativity there. You've got to feel there's some goals there, surely.
I don't know. Like, yeah, you would. Like, you're saying that, like, Callum Robinson. I know we had a good start to the season, but he's gone quite a number of games now. I think it's 6 or 7 games now in the championship without a goal in terms of creativity. Like Adamida,
he's getting no game time. We only ever see him for Ireland, really.
That's the thing, and listen, I've made this point numerous times though as well. Is that, like, these are the issues that plenty of Ireland managers have had to deal with over the last while in terms of obviously the game time, but also the fact that maybe having to chop and change, because you're very rarely ever going to be able to have the same starting 11 throughout a whole campaign and the rest of it. But in terms of goals, like, if you look back to that Azerbaijan game, obviously, and I thought it was interesting in the interview that Keith Andrews kind of gave with you, he kind of maybe, I think it was a bit of an insight that he kind of said he don't think he expected an Azerbaijan player to be capable of scoring that goal. The fact that Cullen and Coleman did it in terms of closing them down and almost said, right, go on, have your shot. Whereas I think he made the point that if it was, say, Bruno Fernandes or someone stepping over that ball, they would have maybe been out to him a bit quicker. So there was obviously a little bit an element of taking them a bit lightly in that regard, which they were punished for. It's I don't know. It's because of the last while. Like, it's the issues with the Ireland team over the last while. It just is scoring goal. Like, I personally think a set piece will be what will decide it for Ireland. Like, I know you said earlier about but the set piece. But some of the goals have actually been good. Like the Johnny Egan goal was a well worked set piece. and they are very important parts of football. And it is something. And again, I've made this point continuously as well. Like, despite the fact that I think people think that like Stephen Kenny has come into the job and wants to do away with set pieces or something that he doesn't want them. But like, they're one of his biggest weapons as manager of Dundalk. Do you know what I mean? He puts such an emphasis on it. So, I personally do think that's what it'll come down to. Will be maybe a set piece or working the ball in a good area in a box and maybe getting Sneyd on the end of it. That could be a way and get through, because it's not going to be like an away game, say against Portugal, where Ireland were able to have a real sharp counter-attack plan and put it into really good use, and were able to properly play well in that game, not just like backs against the wall job. Like, they were able to horse Portugal down each flank, particularly the left, where Connolly could have maybe even scored a goal in the first half. It's not going to be like that against Azerbaijan. It's going to be a game where they're going to have to try and break them down, and creativity in open play is something that Ireland they have a serious lack of. I think maybe if Jamie McGrath keeps his place in the team, again, I think he has got that bit of a pass in him, and he also is good from set pieces. Like, you're probably thinking it's going to be three at the back with the wing backs. You're going to be hoping Matt Doherty and possibly Enda Stevens, who obviously played 90 minutes for Sheffield United last week and has been back in around for the last month or so with Sheffield United. You would think maybe getting in down those flanks will be a big thing, because there won't be an awful lot of space in the round. Obviously, Will Keane will he be a bit of a curveball? And then obviously Troy Parrott as well. He obviously played the game as it was the home game, obviously with Connolly out on the left, and kind of try to use Parrott as in the 10. So that's personally where I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a set piece. I think at the moment, at this moment, that's probably going to be our best opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I guess they probably take it at this stage, given the situation. David Sneyd, thanks so much. And by the way, I know you've a really good interview with James McLean on the 42. 10 years on from his debut in English football. That whisked by, so people can check that out.
He's the oldest player in the squad out in that match.
Making me feel old. Yeah. David, thanks a mil.
No worries, Joe. Take care.
Cheers. David Sneyd there. Football and Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. We're talking to Rob Harris next.